Hi, my name is Chris and welcome to The Film Lounge, a web series that explores some of the basic techniques and approaches used in modern cinema. In this season, we are looking at the building and constructing of your own film. In this episode, we shall be looking at the importance of coverage when filming, so that you not only have options in the editing phase of your film, but keep your film engaging and dynamic. But before we do that, let's take a look at indie Hollywood. So, independent cinema is a very important aspect of the filmmaking world. It's a place where filmmakers can take more risks in their storytelling and touch on subjects that will often get overlooked in big budget Hollywood movies. Of course, by tackling these riskier stories that feature more adult content, it naturally comes at a cost. Namely, the cost of actually making the film itself. Because these films draw smaller audience numbers, the budgets are slashed, which may sound like a disadvantage to some, but it also means less people to seek approval from when making decisions that shape your film. Independent films can start with a budget of $15,000 and normally would not exceed $5 million. However, the definition nowadays for an independent film has become very loose, with films like Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence's American Hustle, not to be confused with every other Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence movie of the last decade. I'm sure they've done 20 films together by now. Anyway, American Hustle is considered an independent film despite costing $40 million. Hell, even 20th Century Fox would have you believe that last year's Deadpool was an independent film, even though it had a budget of $58 million and spent over $100 million advertising the film prior to release. However, today I'd like to focus on the best example of independent cinema and a director to aspire to, Kevin Smith and his directorial debut, Clerks. Now, Clerks followed the adventures of two everyday guys who worked at a convenience store and had to deal with a barrage of different and difficult customers. Now, unfortunately due to the rating of the film, I cannot play any specific clips from that movie, but nonetheless, Clerks is a perfect example of an independent film, made on a budget of $27,000, which Smith had acquired by selling his comic book collection and maxing out any and every credit card that any bank would give him. Seriously, the guy filled out forms, gave his work phone number, which was the same convenience store that he worked at, and then when the bank would call to do a credit check, he would answer the phone pretending to be his boss, give himself a glowing reference, and the bank would approve his credit card. It was an incredibly ballsy move. Now, the film Clerks was made, as I mentioned, for $27,000, based off a script that Smith had written himself. To curb expenses, the film was shot predominantly in one location, only had a small handful of cast which included friends and local theatre actors, and the whole film was shot in black and white, because it was cheaper than colour film. He would work at the convenience store during the day and then would film all night, writing into the script a plot point that the roller shutters on the windows were jammed so that the audience were not aware of whether scenes were shot during the day or night. Please note that these approaches might be worthwhile considerations for your own short film. Except for the whole maxing out credit cards thing. Please do not rack up a huge debt for your short film. Anyway, Clerks premiered at the Cannes Film Festival during the 1993-1994 season to rave reviews and was snapped up by Miramax for an official release. At one time, Clerks was the most stolen video from video stores around the world and became a cult phenomenon. So, in this episode, we will be looking at coverage and why it's so important in filmmaking. So, coverage can be broken down into two things: the number of times you perform the same shot and the number of different angles you film your scene. The number of times you film your shot is important because if you have a limited number of shots, you only have a limited number of performances, and you may end up having to use a shot like this.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my God!
The number of angles is important because this will help you keep your film more visually engaging and can assist with the pacing, especially in scenes built around conversations. Going back to indie director Kevin Smith, he is a prime example of someone who isn't the best at coverage. In his early work, which includes Clerks, Chasing Amy, and Mallrats, Smith himself will admit that he was never the best at coverage. He is fantastic at writing dialogue, right up there with people like Quentin Tarantino and Aaron Sorkin. However, when it comes to filming, he isn't exactly a visual stylist, often opting to just set up a camera and allow his actors just to talk for long periods of time. Just look at these examples from his first two films. These aren't even the longest examples, however, some of these scenes run for 2 continuous minutes without any cutaways, with the one in the right hand corner running for 3 minutes and 28 seconds with only one very quick cutaway. Smith is only able to get away with this kind of long take because the dialogue he writes is so rhythmic and engaging. The importance of conversation scenes is to have all the right shots. Shots that show the best reactions, shots that show the film's surroundings, and shots that demonstrate how characters interact with one another. And of course, there are 100 different great examples of conversations that feature great coverage, but the best example for today's purposes is easily the Joker interrogation scene from the 2008 film The Dark Knight. Now, once again, much like Star Wars, there is no need to go into explicit detail about the history of The Dark Knight. It's become the benchmark for not only comic book movies, but blockbusters in general. Not only did it mix financial success with critical and audience approval, but it also reshaped the comic book genre going forward, with many other film series mimicking Christopher Nolan's approach to storytelling. The film opened back in 2008 with a record-breaking $158 million opening weekend. It closed off its domestic run with nearly $535 million, and it made $1.4 billion worldwide. It became the second highest grossing film of all time, and even though that record has been beaten since, it still serves as a benchmark for every other blockbuster. So, let's look at the interrogation scene where the Joker and Batman meet for the first time, and see how director Christopher Nolan has used coverage to create a dynamic back and forth between two of pop culture's greatest icons.
The good cop, bad cop routine?
Not exactly.
Never start with the head. The victim gets all fuzzy. He can't feel the neck. See?
You wanted me. Here I am.
I wanted to see what you'd do. And you didn't disappoint. You let 5 people die. Then you let Dent take your place. Even to a guy like me, that's cold.
Where's Dent?
Those mob fools want you gone so they can get back to the way things were. But I know the truth. There's no going back. You've changed things. Forever.
Then why'd you want to kill me?
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. No, you complete me.
You're garbage. You kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. You see, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
Where's Dent?
You have all these rules, and you think they'll save you.
So, just by crunching the numbers, there was a total of 27 shots within the 2 minutes of the interrogation that we just watched, comprised of 5 different camera angles and a shot-reverse shot discussion that took up 18 of those 27 shots. Just compare that to the 2 minutes of a Kevin Smith discussion, and you have a range of shots that creates a greater dynamic within the conversation. If we just look at this scene from a staging perspective and label these scenes with camera 1 and camera 2, We then also have cutaway shots for the long shot of Batman, the close-up of the hand punch, and a shot from outside the interrogation room. And we notice how Nolan shapes the scene in a manner that visually reveals the positions of power each character may or may not have, whilst also showing the Joker getting into Batman's head. Now, I'm not going to break down all 27 shots individually, but what I am going to do is focus mostly on the reverse shot between the Joker and Batman. The most important thing to note is how each of these shots serves a purpose in relation to what is being said. If this was one of our student films, often we would just shoot a two-shot from a distance and have the whole conversation play out. Or alternatively, the camera would only have focused on one of the two characters, and we either get Batman sitting there listening to the Joker and missing out on all of the brilliant nuances in his performance. Or we focus solely on Ledger and we never see any of Batman's reactions, meaning we don't know how the character is responding to the Joker's taunts. The coverage that Christopher Nolan has employed means that we have the opportunity to see both characters responding to one another, which means when we want to see Batman looking frustrated or jilted by the Joker's comments, we can focus on that moment. And when we want insight into the Joker's deranged thought process, we can see Heath Ledger's eyes move, and the facial tics and gestures which show who is in control of the situation. But let's notice throughout these range of shots Nolan has to work with, we also have very clear and deliberate choices to represent where the characters are in this chess game of dialogue. At the beginning of the scene, the characters are framed equally, taking up equal amounts of the frame between the reverse shots. However, when the Joker starts getting inside Batman's head, the camera repositions itself so that the Joker fills more of the frame and covers a portion of Batman's head. The camera also moves from the right of Batman over to the left of Batman, which repositions the Joker, visually showing the audience that the Joker's words are going through Batman and changing Batman's view on the Joker. He originally viewed him as a simple thug, however, many of the things the Joker says in this scene are repeated by Batman in later scenes, proving the character has gotten into his head. This is naturally reinforced through the choice of camera movements, camera placement, and coverage within the scene. Once again, try to picture this scene using the Kevin Smith approach to filmmaking, and a lot of the subtext and meaning behind the scene is lost due to the stagnant nature of the shot. In this week's lesson, you want to begin focusing your efforts on the coverage you generate whilst filming. You need to ask yourself a few key questions. Have you positioned the camera in the correct manner? Have you gotten enough takes to ensure the best performance? And have you ensured that you have enough footage from different angles to have enough choices in the editing phase of your production? It is always best with any scene to have at least 3 different camera angles recorded. In the case of a conversation between 2 people, we should always have a 2-shot, an over-the-shoulder shot of character 1 and an over-the-shoulder shot of character 2. Yes, this does mean more footage and more time filming, more material that needs to be catalogued and stored for editing, but the final results will speak for themselves. Please note, if you absolutely positively have to do a single camera take with no coverage, then ensure that there is a lot going on in the shot, both within the foreground and in the background. A fantastic example of how to do this can be found in Steven Spielberg's Jaws, during the barge scene. The camera is in one position, the characters always remain in frame, however, because the barge is moving, the background is constantly shifting and changing. Just remember, the key to successful coverage is multiple takes, multiple angles, and marking off shots on either a copy of your script or via your storyboards so that you don't miss a shot and have to do reshoots. I look forward to seeing what you film. This is Chris Gooch for the Film Lounge, signing off.